All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this event of the European Digital SME Alliance, organized jointly with the focus group of artificial intelligence, with the IT AI community, and with a focus group on e-health, in order to gather together key stakeholders in the AI and e-health community within the digital SME community, indeed, to discuss how to drive AI innovation and adoption in the healthcare sector in line with the EU values and way of digitalization. We know by now, under several circumstances, how much AI is revolutionizing the healthcare provision and the healthcare systems across Europe and beyond, by, for instance, personalizing treatments, by streamlining operations, and by impacting the cost of healthcare provisions across member states. However, it is fundamental for the future of the healthcare systems and for the sustainability of the healthcare systems that the uptake of this technology aligns with the ethical and accessibility requirements for the patients and includes in its development the expertise and the human oversight that needs to be provisioned by the healthcare professionals in the healthcare ecosystem. Therefore, we are here today to understand how innovative SMEs can contribute to realize an uptake of artificial intelligence into European health system, which is in line with its trustworthy deployment and with um, alignment with ethical aspects, and that can encourage the uptake of this technology by healthcare professionals in order to foster a provision of healthcare services in proximity with the patients. Healthcare professionals on the one side, SMEs on the others, are very much close to the needs of the patients in the local ecosystem. And therefore, we would like to also take the opportunity of this event to encourage and to understand how to further improve the collaboration between the innovative European ecosystem, largely made by SMEs and healthcare professionals, in order to deploy artificial intelligence to improve health system across Europe and to improve the provision of health services across Europe. And in order to kick off this discussion today, we are delighted to have with us Ms. Sarah Rinner, Head of Unit on e-health, well-being and aging at DG Connect in the European Commission, who will take stock of the developments that the European Commission has done in terms of initiative and legislation in the healthcare area over the last years, and will help us shape the discussion that will continue with a panel of distinguished guests representing both the innovative ecosystem in the medtech and in the SME sector and the healthcare providers, with a representative from the European doctors. So, looking forward to the discussion today. And indeed, I'm more than happy to give the floor to Ms. Riner for a keynote address. Mrs. Riner, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to your event. I am trying to share my screen. Let me see, I sent a request to share the screen to show my slides. It looks like it gives me the message that the host is not allowing multiple. Okay, now I can do it. Yes. Share. Is it, can you see the slide?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Excellent. So yes, I will be talking about AI in healthcare from three main perspectives. First of all, regulatory. We have, of course, the new AI Act coming up. Then secondly, we have from the European Commission's perspective also innovation support actions that have been announced. And then the third pillar is to increase availability of health data, high quality health data for AI in order to deploy health data infrastructures. First of all, we have the AI Act, which is supporting AI innovation in healthcare and in all other areas. So of course, AI Act in itself is not sector specific, it's horizontal. The aim of the AI Act is to ensure that only safe and trustworthy AI systems reach the European market and that these systems respect European values. It has a risk-based approach, and it will be a key enabler and accelerator for AI innovation in Europe, including in healthcare. The objective here is that by ensuring the safety and transparency of AI systems, users in the healthcare sector, such as healthcare professionals and also patients, can trust those systems better. And this will be the ultimate driver for increasing also then the demand of AI. Secondly, by increasing legal certainty and harmonizing the rules across the EU, AI providers can access bigger markets with products that users and consumers appreciate and purchase. And thirdly, the AI Act enables regulatory sandboxes, which will provide a controlled environment for developers to test the innovative technologies under real-world conditions, also including healthcare applications. The European Commission announced two new actions for boosting the application of AI. This was done by a policy paper published in January this year. The communication, firstly, there was the communication on boosting startups and innovation in trustworthy AI in key sectors, including in healthcare. And then there's also the communication announced specific actions to support the use and uptake of generative AI in these sectors, including, again, in healthcare sector. And it provides privileged access to supercomputers by setting up AI factories for SMEs as well. And these are one-stop shops for startups and innovators to access supercomputing capacities to develop, test, and validate AI solutions. AI factories will be closely linked to the testing and experimentation facility for health, which will provide pre-market validation and innovations developed within AI factories. The AI innovation package also includes the so-called Gen AI for EU initiative, which is earmarking funding of 500 million euros for supporting development of novel Gen AI use cases and emerging applications, again, including in healthcare. The testing and experimentation facility for health is another important instrument to support development of AI in healthcare. And that was this initiative and project. It's a EU-funded project, so funded from Digital Europe program, and it was launched in January 2023. It supports developers in the healthcare, AI, and robotics sector to bring trustworthy AI solutions to the market and to increase their uptake in the EU and countries associated to Digital Europe program. This is done by making easier and faster the validation and certification of AI and robotics in medical devices. As I said, there is also the aspect of having regulatory sandboxes under the AI Act. And these will be created by member states to help AI innovators navigate the regulatory requirements, since the startups and SMEs will be able to test their technologies in compliance with the AI Acts. So SMEs and startups will have priority access to these regulatory sandboxes. Then when we look at the data part, and this is something that my unit is in particular working on. So we are supporting several health data infrastructures and AI in my unit. These are deployed under the Digital Europe program mainly, and they are also examples of successful synergies between research and deployment actions, because they build on research results from Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe programs. And these infrastructures will contribute to the goals of the European health data space, and they are also supporting AI-based innovation. The European Cancer Imaging Initiative is one of the flagships of the Europe's Beating Cancer Plan, and it is the cornerstone of the initiative, which is called UCAIM, which is the name of the project which is supporting the initiative. The UCAIM project will link up resources and databases to make millions of cancer images available to researchers, innovators, and policymakers in a safe and privacy-preserving setting. This will allow for piloting new AI tools for better and more personalized cancer treatment and care. And as a milestone for the initiative, the first version of the infrastructure was already launched in September 2023. Second, we have the 1+Million Genomes initiative that aims to enable secure access to genomic data across Europe, and this is becoming a reality through the Genomic Data Infrastructure project that will be a federated infrastructure enabling cross-border access to genomic and related clinical data. And the project includes organizations from 24 European countries. We are also supporting another project which is just starting now, which is called Genome of Europe, and that brings really, it's about sequencing genomes of Europeans in order to boost the data part of this initiative, because here we are looking at the infrastructure side, but also the data, the genomic data is needed to create more insights into disease, let's say prevention, or how prone individuals are for certain diseases, to build risk scores. And for that, we also need genomic data from healthy individuals, not only the ones who have a specific disease. Then we have also the Virtual Human Twins initiative that was launched in December last year. This is the latest one, and that is about digital representation of human body using software, data, and AI. And the cornerstone of this initiative is a 24 million euros state-of-the-art digital platform that we are procuring currently under the Digital Europe program. Lastly, there will be also an infrastructure for intensive care unit data, which will facilitate development of AI models for risk prevention. Then I would like to also mention on the data side, the European Health Data Space Regulation. This will be a breakthrough for healthcare, health research, and health industry, since it will make available health data for primary use and secondary use. So primary use means that the data is used for delivery of healthcare with the goal of improving patients' access to their health data and ensuring seamless exchanges of health data for healthcare provision and continuity of care, also across borders. The EHDS fosters requirements for electronic health record systems as well, with the aim of creating a single market for electronic health record systems. The secondary use part of the regulation is about using data for research and public interest purposes. And the aim is to make data available for research, policy making, and so on in a very safe and secure way. The EHDS will make more data available for development, testing, and validation of AI solutions as well, and therefore it is an important building block to advance AI in healthcare. The official publication of the regulation is expected for the beginning of 2025, so very soon, and the entry into application starts gradually as of end of 2026. So this was, in a nutshell, the activities, actions we are currently promoting in the Commission on AI in Healthcare. Of course, now we have the new Commission starting, and we have all the strategic priorities and the mission letters of the commissioners that we are going to start implementing. And for example, the preventive health is something which is very high on the agenda, cardiovascular diseases and mental health. So all these areas, disease areas and approaches for healthcare are also something that we want to support with technology side. So we are sort of bringing the technologies to help all these various, let's say, strategic priorities of the Commission. So this was all from my side, and I'm happy, of course, to answer questions or continue discussions on the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Lina, for this comprehensive presentation on the very interesting initiatives that the Commission is launching and is conducting, and especially on the last one you presented, the European Health Data Space. Of course, SMEs are very much interested and following into the development of the European Health Data Space because our community is very much willing to contribute to the successful deployment of the HDS as a tool to indeed use technology and foster data exchanges that can contribute to deliver better healthcare services for all in Europe. And in this respect, you mentioned the new Commission. Maybe one question that our community has, on top of the legislative initiative that have been deployed over the last years, also with a look not only at the healthcare sector but at the digital sector, what can the new Commission do in terms of actually enabling innovation and leveraging innovation that is coming from its European industrial base? Because there is one priority in the new Commission that has been made evident by designing an executive vice president for tech sovereignty, which is indeed the sovereignty of our data, the sovereignty of our technology. How do we make sure that especially in a crucial sector where the sensitiveness of data is even more evident to everyone, how do we make sure that we rely on technology that can come for Europe? So what do you expect from the new Commission in terms of really fostering and making innovation possible in Europe in this area?
So thank you very much for this question. Actually, during the current Commission, there have been a lot of regulatory initiatives such as AI Act and EHDS, which has actually at the let's say as a basis really the thinking of doing things in the European way, respecting European values and privacy, and this is in itself a signal that we want to do it right, not at the cost of people's privacy, for example, and that it needs to be something that we, at the same time, we want to keep it like an asset also for the companies who are following these rules, that they can compete with this let's say being trustworthy partners in healthcare provision, for example. And the next Commission will be delivering a lot of implementing acts and guidelines. So this will be very much because a lot of regulation was put in place, and now we are moving to the implementation phase. Of course, there we are really looking at the details of all these regulations to make it also possible for companies to do it in a rational way, that there is no overlaps in reporting or having to do certifications here and there. So this is also the simplification is one of the keywords also for the next Commission.
Glad to hear indeed this from the perspective of the SMEs. Thank you for this answer, Mrs. Lina. I hope you can stay with us as long as possible, maybe also to react to the discussion and the contribution that we are looking forward to hear from our distinguished guests. And indeed, to open the discussion, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Gabriele Catalini, Tech Project Manager at Digital SME, who will help us guide us through the discussion and introduce our distinguished guest. Over to you, Gabriele.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rinne, for the kind introduction. Now we go to the core part of the event. We have very expert speakers from different organizations, very important stakeholder in the healthcare ecosystem. And here I'm glad to present Benjamin Mini, manager at MedTech Europe, especially on digital software and AI regulation. Then we have today Sara Roda, you senior policy advisor at European Doctor or SEAPME, and also from the industry perspective, Mehdi Khaled, who is founder and managing partner at SEHA Consulting. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the speaker for an introduction. And on top of the introduction, I would also guide the discussion with some general questions that are aimed at receiving insights from their different position and the different kind of stakeholders that they are. So for the moment, I would like to start with Sara, given that SEPME has recently published a policy position on the deployment of artificial intelligence in healthcare. So for today, we would like to see what is the perspective from the healthcare professional. Do you have any insights, any examples of the benefits that the medical staff can employ AI tools and solutions? What are the benefits? What do you think it's the current uptake of AI in the healthcare field? Is it high? Is it low? Are there any resistances? And if yes, which could be the main factor that we can address to have AI solution? Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation and also the possibility to be here and explain a little bit the doctor's views on the deployment of AI in healthcare. They see this with very high hopes, where something that can improve the quality of care, their clinical practice, and also to reduce the administrative burdens. And as you also mentioning they had a consideration on what type of AI systems could be of use. And so they divided in these two categories, the ones that were aimed at optimizing the administrative workflow, and in this case, they had a speech-to-text AI systems or scheduling algorithms, and these are very helpful. And the other one were more to support clinical decision-making systems. And here we would also include the predictive AI policy. So we were seeing it with our members, the AI deployment is actually low in healthcare. It could be better and it could be improved. And so we outlined some recommendations on how it can be better. We know, of course, that the health workforce is very constrained, so there are a lot of burnouts and shortages, and the AI could try to support on solving certain issues. But it is hard to spread technology across the healthcare sector because it's a complex environment and different layers, different organizations and specialties. You also, doctors, feel a little bit uncomfortable on using systems where they don't know where the data sources are coming from, if the data is not validated, also on the data collection processes. And so overall, if the data quality could be questionable on the algorithm, then most systems for them are not certified, and there is a wide offer on the market. So it's very hard for them to know which one is the good system. And also because there is no specific role, no one has a duty or a role to carry out activities to find out this is the good software or this is the other one. It's normally at the initiative of the doctor that they do these insights. Or also if they do, they don't have the power to act on the insights that they have gained. So there is a little bit of a lack on support on that, because looking, it consumes a lot of time, and also the liability that can be behind if the system is not well placed or introduced. So they were analyzing, and I was actually checking in terms of notified bodies. For example, in Portugal for medical devices, I did not see any notified body existing. So I don't know how it has been done, but even from the medical devices directive from 93 and other regulation, there is none there, even for in vitro. So I don't know how they have been doing. I guess my point was also, if we believe that it's important to have certified AI systems, but we also need that the certifications structures, so the notified bodies are in place so that innovation can go forward. Yes, I have some recommendations. I don't know if you want me to stop now, and I'll do this a little bit later on some of those recommendations.
I think it's perfectly fine if you keep the recommendation, so we can now just start the discussion, and you will have the opportunity later. Maybe even as you touched the matter of compliance, which is very relevant. I mean, even from an SME perspective, the AI solution that are created not only needs to be catered to doctors, and hospitals and healthcare providers, which are the ones actually using the solutions, but they also need to comply with all national and European regulation for the safety, transparency, and accessibility criteria. And on this topic, I would like to give the floor to Benjamin, because from his experience at MedTech Europe, they deal a lot with the regulation, especially on the AI Act and the implementation. So we know that it's a very complex challenge, especially striking a balance between the regulation, both national but especially European level, while also ensuring technological innovations. So we need compliance, but we also need regulation that do not hinder the state-of-the-art innovation for the patient. So could you please share some insights and the position of MedTech Europe and possibly your members?
Thank you so much, Gabriele, and in many ways you took the words straight out of my mouth, and also thank you. I think Sada sort of very well brought it over to my area with the mention of notified bodies and the medical devices sector. So, firstly, just a very big thank you to European Digital SME Alliance and all of you for inviting me to join this very interesting panel and a very timely discussion. I don't think it will stop being timely over the course of the next, let's say, just shy of 36 months now, I think is the sort of final implementation for our medtech sector. Maybe just briefly for those of you who are less familiar with MedTech Europe, we are the EU Association for Manufacturers of both manufacturers of medical devices, but also manufacturers of in vitro diagnostic medical devices. And of course, within those product offerings is included digital connected medical devices and IVDs, which historically has also, of course, included AI or artificial intelligence enabled devices. I just want to say, fully agree, just in immediate reaction with your final points, Sada. I think it is very important, particularly on certification, that we ensure that hospitals, healthcare professionals, and of course patients have access to certified products with that trusted CE marking affixed, and that those products are up to scratch. And in many ways, of course, an important starting point in this discussion is noting that we do already have quite thorough regulation accounting for this, of course, and that is the Medical Devices Regulation, or the MDR. And of course, also from the, let's say, other side of that sector is the In Vitro Diagnostic Medical Devices Regulation, or the IVDR. These both together and exclusively provide highly effective benchmarks in ensuring that the design, the developments, and the marketing of medical devices and IVDs are safe, that they are effective, that they perform as intended according to the manufacturer's claim, but also that they are innovative and that they are state-of-the-art medical technologies that are getting to the EU and by extension, of course, to be used in the end on patients with very unique conditions, among others. This, of course, does lead to problems because it's been mentioned several times already, the Artificial Intelligence Act that has been, or at least has entered into force quite recently as of early August. And for us, we see this having a major, if you will, groundbreaking effect on our sectoral regulations, and in fact groundbreaking across the board to the effect that GDPR may have had a number of years ago, perhaps in some respects even more so in effect of what it's trying to regulate. In our view, of course, the Act arguably is something of a hybrid piece of legislation, sitting somewhere between product safety legislation, of course, highly important for our manufacturers and, of course, all the stakeholders along our ecosystem, but also a fundamental rights legislation. And that is a very important point as well, because it does raise or elevate that level of fundamental rights rather than implicit in previous legislation. It is now written down, this importance of fundamental rights in AI, and we support this importance, of course. We believe that the AI Act ultimately and directly impacts upon the provision of traditional medical technologies, and that is MDs and IVDs. But specifically, we see this interaction hopefully working as seamlessly as possible between the AI Act's horizontal rules and those sectoral rules of the MDR and the IVDR. We also know, of course, and as I mentioned already, this reference to 36 months, that these new AI rules will apply in something of a cascading fashion, which does allow our sector, our manufacturers, and of course, all of the stakeholders across the ecosystem to really best prepare alongside the European Commission. So we do welcome the EU regulators' efforts in developing guidelines, and this is something we have consistently supported and offered our best practices to. What we do need, and you mentioned it already, Gabriele, in your question, is a need for balance to be achieved, recognizing the criticality that these regulations should work together rather than against one another. So for us, we would like to see a single, integrated, and effective pre- and post-market process. And this will be paramount, of course, to ensure that continued delivery of safe and effective, but also innovative connected medical technologies to hospitals, to healthcare providers, and ultimately, the most important thing, to patients. We arguably see that anything that makes things unnecessarily complex adds costs, and this is very specific for SMEs also. It adds costs, it distorts regulatory requirements that are fundamentally designed towards ensuring the safety and performance of medical technologies, and we fear complexity may add undue pressure on the supply of very highly innovative medical technologies which are needed today on the market. This, as I mentioned, is especially the case for SMEs, many of which don't necessarily boast the resources that larger counterparts might boast towards navigating a complex regulatory landscape. So as a sector, just to maybe sum up and go back to the next speaker, as a sector, we are not asking for lighter rules here. We are asking, however, that the existing rules and the incoming rules operate in an interconnected way and in a well thought out manner. So really, avoiding that duplication between the MDR and the IVDR and the AI Act. So adding those AI Act provisions in a complementary fashion. And then, of course, bringing those AI Act requirements on top of those where novel concepts are introduced, such as, of course, the added human oversight requirements, data governance requirements. These we are ready to take on board, of course, into our processes under the MDR and IVDR. So I think I've spoken long enough for the first question, so I'll give the floor back. So
it's perfectly fine, don't worry. Thank you very much for your contribution. Very useful insights, I think, for everybody here. And of course, it was a very challenging question because striking the balance between compliance and innovation, it's very, very hard. But I think through the dialogue between all the stakeholders, both at European level, but also companies, association and representative of companies, but also actually the healthcare providers and patients, only through the whole ecosystem coming to discuss this rule, we could promote a better uptake of AI solutions that are fair and accessible to everybody. And given the focus also on the compliance and in the private sector, the actual SMEs, companies, even larger companies that provide the actual solution, the AI innovation. So we have also here Mehdi, and as a global digital health expert, especially coming from the private sector, could you please share some insights on how do you see the current situation of AI use in Europe? Do you see or do you have any particular example or field knowledge of the current impact? Is it revolutionizing the market? What could be some of the challenges or obstacles or even opportunities for entrepreneurs in the field?
Thanks, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to be here today. Great panel. I'm really thrilled to learn from all of you and share some thoughts. I've been in the field for roughly 25 years, and I spent not the last, but big part of my career, like 15 years in Singapore. I've been very much exposed to most of the Asian healthcare systems. I've worked with the Singapore government in partnership and Australian governments, etc., back to Europe and based in Vienna. And so as a clinician and a digital health professional, I have to say that right now, I have to put your question in context, Gabriele. So the context is, everything related to AI has to be put back in the context of technology, and everything related to technology interventions in healthcare has to be put back into the context of healthcare strategy in general. And so, taking AI as a silo by itself and driving everything from a technology perspective is certainly not the right thing to do, although some governments are doing it right now, especially in the Middle East, but that's beside the fact. I think Saila has mentioned, and I'll start with that, a very interesting area, that's the area of prevention. I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but then I think in Europe, we have to take it like one country at a time or one region at a time. There are some countries that are more digitally mature than others, and we know this, so we have to take it really in context. We know Germany is, despite the efforts of the Krankenhauszukunftsgesetz and all these investments, etc., we know that Germany is still not there in terms of digital maturity. They're doing big steps, though. We know that the Nordics have achieved massive, great milestones in integrating social data with healthcare data. Finland is a good example for that. And we know that a lot of healthcare outcomes also depend on social determinants, also the so-called social determinants of health. And so there are many things that we can learn from European countries, but also from non-European countries, i.e. Asian countries, how have they have, you know, honed and structured their healthcare strategy and surrounded it with enabling technologies so that those technology will be somehow adopted and implemented in a meaningful way. And so I really would like to be very specific because, you know, taking AI technologies and throwing them into the mix of healthcare happenings will not really be a meaningful thing to do. Now, very specifically, the example of Singapore is very striking because they have a very clear overarching strategy for their healthcare system that is mainly looking at prevention, and this is very interesting. And then they surrounded themselves with other technologies, but also said, okay, so what are the technologies that would be most meaningful for us to implement in the right order for us to be closer to the patient and drive better outcomes? Because that's the ultimate goal, right? What you want to do is you want to keep the citizens at home, to not call them patients, and keep the patients, if there are patients, away from the hospital. That's your goal as a healthcare system, right? And so in European countries, we see this happening. Spain has developed, like the government of Catalonia specifically has developed an excellent health prediction score or health outcome prediction score mechanism to predict the possible onsets of complications for COPD patients, etc., etc. They've been developing this for many, many years. And then as AI, it was called before, it was called, as we know, it was called advanced analytics. Now it's called AI. Okay, names keeps changing, technology is roughly the same. But then all of a sudden, they have already a very good set of data with a great quality that they can apply AI on. And I think the chance that the European Union has today is the HDS and EU for Health, and so or Health at EU. But then that's an opportunity to accelerate data quality, data specificity, the richness, etc., and start doing things that are a little bit more comprehensive with AI. We know that the European Union is way behind the US in terms of AI developments. You know, like 75% of the market is dominated by the US, 25% is China, and Europe is only 5%. And so what I'm saying is we're in a very small position right now, like third position, but by far, like far behind. But that shows potential, actually. It's not necessarily a bad thing. That shows potential for incremental innovation. And so I think we can learn, in a nutshell, we can learn a lot from the Nordics in terms of they've harmonized the social and healthcare data into a very specific data model based on what we call open EHR, which is open air. It's a data set that is as complete as it can be. The open EHR standard is now driving a lot of healthcare systems, or being adopted in many healthcare systems across the globe. London, well, there is one London, there are many projects that are increasingly adopting open EHR. And we know that the EHDS has not really tackled that question. We're still in the exchange, and the federated model is great, but then the potential that we have it lies within the quality, specificity, and richness of the data that we put together, even in a federated fashion, to help develop like AI solutions that are specific to healthcare. The exciting thing about AI is the first technology where we do not see any limits. Any technology before that had limitations somewhere. And AI is the first technology where you look at it and you don't even see the horizon line. It's so vast and so potent that, you know, it's difficult to imagine any boundaries. And so, but at the same time, to be very effective with any AI-related solution in Europe, but also outside of Europe, is it's a level of specificity of the data that you train your AI systems on. I'll give an example. So as you know, many radiology modality providers, your GE or all the CT scan and all these radiology modality manufacturers have loaded a set of patents for AI-driven diagnostics. And so the algorithms help, for example, the physicians make use of the technology in a way that they do not underdiagnose a breast cancer for mammographies, for example. This is great. The only thing is this, there's a catch to that. It's great that AI-driven systems or AI-enabled systems will help the physician do that. The problem of the data in the US is specific to the population of the US. It's as diverse as it can be, but it's not the representation of Asian populations or Middle Eastern populations. And the problem with breast cancers is, depending on the ethnicity of the patient, the breast densities are different. And so you take the algorithm that worked in the US, you put it in the Middle East, and all of a sudden you have the sensitivity and specificity of the test drops because it has not been trained on data that is specific to that population. And so the European Union has that population diversity. And what I'm saying here is we have a chance that if we open up the data into a collaborative open AI, open source AI development kind of thing, even in a PPP model, right? I think we have a chance to lead in that area, but not only in the clinical area. I think we have written a paper that was presented to the UN about AI in healthcare, and we have recommended some low-hanging fruits. And the low-hanging fruits in AI for healthcare do not lie in the diagnostics or the clinical area. They lie in the non-clinical area because there is less regulations, there are less hurdles, less, it's quick. Anything that does not touch clinical is good to go. Automations, appointment booking, all tasks that are repetitive are subject or candidates for automation, and they're not necessarily clinical. So I'll stop there, but I think that there is a lot of potential for AI in healthcare in the European Union, and we can start maybe drawing what would be the areas of least resistance to drive these by sharing data using the HDS and other modalities. I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much. And we fully agree that, of course, AI starts from data, and opening up, unlocking the potential, even economic potential of data will give a very good service to the EU citizens, while also boosting the private sector if they can have available data from the healthcare sector. However, as we know, of course, these are also complex topics, especially when talking about sensitive data, and especially the risk of employing data also for AI solution. But now I wanted to come back to Sarah for the moment, who is free to reply or follow up on any other points proposed by Mehdi or Benjamin. But I wanted to be a bit more specific, as we mentioned before, on which are the recommendations from your side, from the doctors. How can we support better the uptake of AI in healthcare? And what are also the priorities from the sector, from the medical staff specifically, to create business opportunities for entrepreneurs?
Well, I think many points that were touched upon are very interesting, also in relation to the data sets and where should we start first. And so the suggestions that European doctors were giving was to design on actual healthcare demands, and because the overall goal should be the improvement of the clinical practice and the quality of care, and not just the technology innovation per se. And so to go and try to learn the real needs of healthcare professionals, patients, carers, and guardians. So start from that, collaborate, involve the healthcare professionals in the design of the AI systems, hear their thoughts, try to involve them, and also do this in a dynamic loop so that they can feed back into the system even in post-market monitoring systems that can allow this responsive and also evolve and adjust according to these new parameters of the user inputs. Then we would also suggest, in terms of in relation to the data sets, to promote the reliability of data sets in healthcare. Training should be carried out in validated data sets, specifically tailored to the healthcare settings. So in the beginning, there was a lot of data scrapping on the internet. So this is not the way that is desirable. And so it was important also for doctors that manufacturers are transparent about the technology that is used and the underlying training data. Another point that our members were highlighting that we could start working on short-term needs, so exploit them first, and here try to resolve inefficiencies in healthcare provisions, knowledge fragmentation, and as Mehdi was mentioning, the lack of automatization of time-intensive routine processes. So these could be areas that it can be exploited first. There were, for example, in primary care in Ireland, already some nice open source AI systems that is called a key risk, and it's tried to detect heart failures and people with cardiovascular disease and try to predict the risk of heart failures. So some primary general practitioners, so in primary care, are already using this at the national scale. So I don't know, it would be good that we have this kind of software that is trustworthy embedded in the system. So of course, again, it's always about, and I come back again with the certification, because with certification we resolve the issue of the data sets and non-data sources and the trust and the fact that the system is trustworthy. So our members were saying the areas that they would like certification to address was cybersecurity, data privacy, efficiency and workflow integration, interoperability, explainability, model robustness, and bias mitigation. So these were the areas that they would like to see addressed. Then also promote adequate tools and methods to interpret and explain the AI output, and this to take into account the doctor's background and experience, the complexity of the AI systems also, and the audience that is at that moment. And also for doctors, they should be able to question the AI system on their decisions. And there should be also a minimum common understanding of what is an adequate and sufficiently good explanation. And here they were also in favor that if we have a validation on the explanation, this should imply that we can use the AI system with confidence. Also, they support to have detailed and clear instructions for use. And coordinate knowledge at EU and national level. So I was hearing about the AI factories. So I think this is quite very interesting initiatives to scale the clinical expertise within the national settings and allow an interesting forum to take place and support actually SMEs in their activities. So I think here we can, if we have these knowledge environments of sufficient scale and clinical experience, and somehow coordinate all of these efforts for research collaboration and exchange, it is quite helpful to have it. We had several more others, but I don't know, we see that time is limited, so I would stop here. I can put our paper in the chat.
It's perfectly fine, and yes, please just put it in the chat, and we will also collect it for the follow-ups from the event, because even as Digital SME Alliance, we are very interested in bringing more stakeholders, even from the digital and ICT field, that can provide solution to the healthcare sector. So maybe some are developing AI or data tools and services that can be as well as applied in the healthcare sector for the benefit of the citizens. So it's a very important even market opportunity for all stakeholders. And I would just ask either Benjamin or Maddie if you have additional point that you would like to share today, especially looking forward for the next year. If you have any further recommendation or any points that you would like to stress.
Do you want to start, Mehdi?
Go ahead, man.
Okay. I only have a few brief points, and indeed a lot of very interesting topics were touched on. I mean, Mehdi, you mentioned it very well already. We're dealing with a very mixed bag as you move across Europe in relation to the level of digitalization of healthcare delivery. Of course, if you look towards Northern Europe, specifically the Nordics, are a fine example of where digitalization has been quite effective, and of course, Ireland, my own country, very mixed, I would say, bag of achievements in terms of digitalization. Of course, we're looking forward to that Children's Health Hospital, supposedly highly connected and highly digitally revolutionary. But one thing we would like to see, and it's not necessarily an official position from ours, but it's something we consistently say, what we would like to see from regulators, not specifically from EU regulators, but really at a national level, is that reiteration of the importance of healthcare. We saw it, of course, from the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, this absolute rush to digitalize processes and procedures across sectors, but really, of course, how to streamline healthcare delivery, how to, and Sarah, you mentioned it already, the use of AI, deployment of AI, and streamlining processes, particularly administrative processes, filtering patients through based on needs, so triaging. So all of these areas are really something we need to see continuing, and a continued investment from public or a public sectoral investment in the delivery of healthcare, and of course,